Hello, Tracy Whipple, wine nerd, not to be confused with wine turd. Wine nerd, and I would like to show you the world of wine as I know it and try to help you figure out some of the mysteries surrounding choosing wine, knowing what wine to choose, whether it's by looking at a label, whether it's by looking at an advertisement, whether it's going to a restaurant and trying to figure out what the heck you should pick for dinner. And I have some cheat sheets here that I think will help. So it's deciphering the label. Right here I have a New Zealand wine, and it's from New Zealand, being a New World versus Old World. Actually, check this out. New World versus Old World, and it's very high tech. New World versus Old World. New World basically refers to any wines that are not made in Europe. New World would be South America, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, maybe California, Oregon, Washington, New York, New World wines. Old World, European, Spain, France, Italy, Greece, Hungary, Germany, any wines made in Europe, that would be Old World. So actually pretty easy to figure out. So deciphering the labels. So here, number one, winery, Kono. Kono is the winery that made the wine. The vintage, here it says 2010, and we're in the latter part of 2010 now. They are in the southern hemisphere, so their seasons are flip-flopped. They are basically a season ahead of us, and that's why there's a 2010 vintage out for New Zealand. And also this is a white wine, and generally this can be consumed much younger than red wines, let's say. And we have the varietal being Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc is the varietal meaning the type of grape it is. Other common varietals, Cabernet Sauvignon, Pinot Noir, Riesling, Malbec, those are other typical grape varietals that you find. Vitis vinifera, little wine knowledge. Vitis vinifera is the Latin name for basically wine grapes. Although wines can be made out of any grape. Concord wine, for all of you Jews out there. Grew up with Manischewitz. Not that it's a great wine, but it is wine. And we have the proprietary or fantasy name sometimes you'll find. Not on here, but let's see. We have here, this is Meretricious Red. That's just a name that the winery made up. Here, latitude 34 degrees. It's a name that the winery made up for marketing purposes. And we have appellation. Appellation is where the grapes come from. In this instance, it's Marlborough. That's the area in New Zealand where it came from. Alcohol content. Generally, white wines have lower alcohol content than red wines. That's not always the case, but this one is 13.5, which is getting onto the higher side for whites. But generally speaking, the riper the grapes get, the more sugar that's in the grape when it's picked. It means the yeast has more sugar to process through. The yeast is going to kick out more alcohol, higher alcohol wine. Reds generally, that happens with. Reds can get up to 16.5%, which is, that's a lot of alcohol. Now we also have the vineyard that it comes from. This doesn't have the vineyard on it. Does this one? Does not have the vineyard on it. These don't, but a lot of times it'll say maybe Bien Nacido Vineyard, Jen's Vineyard, and that's basically just the vineyard where the grapes were picked. And the importer, this is listed on the back. This is just basically who brings the wine into the country. And I have estate and reserve here, and basically estate means the grapes, all the grapes come from the estate, the vineyard's estate. It's land that vineyard owns or is in control of. And reserve, sometimes that just designates it's an extra special lot that the winemaker or winery made to bottle specifically, usually means a higher price. So we have a screw top here that's generally found on New World wines. So we have glass here that, you know, and that all, people have a lot of different thoughts and viewpoints on what type of glass to serve with what. My preference is I need it to be big enough that I can swirl around, and you want to swirl it and release the volatile esters. And I'm not talking about your crazy Aunt Esther. Volatile esters. Esters are alcohols and you want to release the volatile esters, and basically that's going to create the aroma that you want to have. And do not be afraid to stick your nose in the wine. It smells so nice. Another preference that I have is a real thin lip on the edge of the glass. I think it just makes it much more comfortable to drink. So you want to swirl it around, and I've had a lot of practice. As you can see, you can also do it this way. And you'll notice the colors is important. You just want to make sure the wine isn't oxidized, and I'll explain that in a later episode as well. But this is really lovely. The color's awfully light, but I have a tendency to think that this is not a really light wine. Don't be afraid to get some of those air bubbles. You want the wine to come into contact with all parts of your tongue, so you're going to get all of your taste buds kicking. And this has, it's really crisp, a little bit tropical. This is just screaming for some scallops with like a green sauce, or tomatillo salsa or something like that. It's really, really nice, very pretty. We're getting out of summer now and into fall, so I'm glad I opened this now. I'll be having the rest for dinner. I want to thank you for joining me, and the next episode we're going to move on to something like the 5 V's, and I know you're going to think that's really exciting, so join me, please. Thank you very much. Wine nerd, Tracy Whipple. Bayanara.